Welcome back, everybody. Earlier this year, President Trump took steps to crack down on illegal immigration to help further curtail the spread of the China virus. And last month, the president toured the now more than 200-mile stretch of new border barrier on the southern border. Now there's a new bill in Congress to end what's known as birth tourism and fight immigration fraud. We're now joined by that bill's sponsor, Senator Marsha Blackburn of the great state of Tennessee. Senator, thanks for taking the time.
It's so good to be with you. Thank you so much.
For the folks at home, remind them what birth tourism is and what does your bill do to address it?
Absolutely. And Chris, I will tell you, this is an industry that has really sprung up in the United States since about 2008, when it started taking off. It's primarily used by Russians and the Chinese. And what they will do is work with a tour operator in the United States, and they will come here to give birth to their child, stay for a few months until all the paperwork is done for that child to be recognized as a citizen and receive benefits that are given to our citizens. And then they exit and go back to Russia or China. And then when that child wants to go to college, guess what? They are considered a U.S. citizen, of course. And if they want to come here and work, they're considered a U.S. citizen. So what they're doing is trying to assign or purchase the rights of U.S. citizenship for a child. They get pregnant, they come here, they give birth, they get the paperwork, they go home, and then they use it to their advantage.
Well, a lot of Americans are not in favor of that, I would imagine. I know that I am not. But Americans have been on record, Senator, for an awful long time against illegal immigration. The vast majority of American voters and American citizens, regardless of race, color, or creed, they know that illegal immigration is wrong, it's immoral, and it's bad for the country that's forced to endure it by its political class. Let me ask you, because this is something you've been on the forefront for a long time, how do we, the American people, get a majority in that Congress that is equally committed to stopping illegal immigration as the American people are?
Well, I would hope that people are going to be weighing in with their elected officials and talking about this. Look, we've got 200 miles of border wall that President Trump has put on the border. He has really taken some extraordinary steps to secure that border and to stop some of the passage into our country by these coyotes, by these human traffickers, sex traffickers, and gangs that were running over that southern border. Likewise, in January of this year, he issued an executive order that would ban birth tourism. And at the end of last year, Department of Justice went after 19 of these companies that sell the right to come here and have your baby. And my act would codify the work that the president has done. But those are all steps that close some of these loopholes to how people are taking advantage of this system. Now, when the average Tennessean stops and thinks about this, they go, hey, this isn't right. And they speak up, and Tennesseans fully support me in the work I've done to secure the southern border, to build the wall, to stop this birth tourism. And I hope that other members of Congress and members of the Senate will hear from people in their states and say, hey, you need to support building that wall. You need to support banning this, because I have relatives that fought, whether it is in Desert Storm or the Vietnam War or the Korean conflict or World War II, and they have fought and sacrificed. Many of them lost their lives to protect the freedoms and the liberties that are enshrined to us in our Constitution. That should mean something to us. Ronald Reagan liked to say, we do not pass freedom from one generation to another in the bloodstream.
True.
This is
true.
And every single generation has to fight for. This is something I can do as a happy warrior to fight to preserve that freedom for my children and grandchildren.
One of the biggest obstacles to that freedom, of course, is our, what I would classify as an enemy, the People's Republic of China. Not only have they unleashed this pandemic on our country, resulting in thousands of deaths, over 100,000 deaths of Americans, but they've ruined our economy and ruined the world's economy. You are taking some steps to decouple from the People's Republic of China. You and Senator Cotton, the Secure Campus Act. Tell us about that.
Yes, there are several things that we are working on, and ending these Confucius institutes. And we have about 70 colleges and universities that still partner with the Chinese Communist Party, Chinese government, and they fund a Chinese cultural institute. They're called Confucius Institutes. They pay millions of dollars to American colleges and universities, and they say, oh, it's cultural exchange and language education. But what we also have learned from their foreign minister is this is part of their soft power. It is part of their propaganda. So we're saying, no, you are going to have to jump through some hoops and meet some additional disclosures. If you're going to do this, you can't allow these Chinese professors to come here, because what have we learned? Many times these Chinese professors are nothing more than spies. So we don't want them coming to the United States. We don't want them working with our colleges. You know, Russia and China are two of what I call the new axis of evil. Look at Iran, look at North Korea, look at Russia, look at China, look at how they try to abuse our freedoms and liberties. Confucius Institutes, birth tourism, you give them an opening and they're going to exploit it for their benefit. We're also working to allow U.S. citizens to sue the Chinese Communist Party in U.S. courts. And this is through the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act. And it is, Chris, very much like what we did for the families that had lost loved ones and livelihoods from 9/11.
Right. And, you know, some of those Chinese spies end up as drivers for one of your colleagues, Dianne Feinstein, which brings me to my next question for you, because the World Health Organization is run by a guy by the name of Dr. Tedros, who is not a medical doctor, yet your colleagues across the aisle and Beijing Biden, the presidential nominee for the Democrats, he is on record, as is the majority of the Democrat Party, is extolling the virtues of the World Health Organization, but a guy who's not even a medical doctor runs it with the support of Democrats. Because of that fact, can we now assume the Democrat Party is no longer the party of science?
What I think we have to do is look at the Democrats and say they would rather appease than fight. And when it comes to protecting our freedoms and liberties, the World Health Organization was complicit in working with China to make certain that this was soft-pedaled. The Wuhan virus was soft-pedaled as the COVID-19 was spreading out of Wuhan. We know that the Chinese Communist Party knew for 51 days that they had this virus, and it was running through their country, and it was causing a pandemic. They had 3,000 cases. They locked people in their apartments and left them to die. And we know that President Xi knew that they had this. It was a pandemic, and he said nothing. But we also know that they spent 51 days scooping up all the PPE from other supplies around the country. So whether it is going after China, and they hold a lot of our debt, and working on how we address when that debt matures and payment comes due to China, whether it is repatriating a lot of our critical infrastructure manufacturing back to the U.S., what we need, or whether it is saying, as we are doing, that we're going to not participate with the World Health Organization until there are substantial reforms, and standing up against China, trying to get a seat on the Human Rights Council at the UN. These are steps that we should take. And then holding American businesses accountable. My goodness, I've been after the NBA this week because of their coziness with China.
Very good. Yeah, they deserve it. You know, there's all kinds of hypocrisy there on the left. And this is the last question I have for you. Only got about 30 seconds. Nancy Pelosi's running around the Capitol, tearing down anything that has to do with the Confederacy. Yet, sitting in Statuary Hall, there is a statue of a prominent Democrat, a former KKK member by the name of Robert Byrd. Aren't the Democrats hypocrites as long as that statue is standing?
One of the things that we should keep in mind, it is the Republican Party that fought for stopping oppression and ending slavery and removing that Confederate flag. It's the Republican Party. It is the Republican Party that led the push for the Civil Rights Act. It is the Republican Party that led the push for women getting the right to vote. So those are things that we should keep in mind. We've been very consistent in our opposition to oppression. We have been very consistent in our support for equality, for liberty, for justice, for all, for the rule of law, for everyone being equal under the law.
Senator Blackburn, it has been a pleasure to speak with you here on the Chris Salcedo Show. Come back the next opportunity you get. We appreciate it.
Absolutely, Chris. Anytime. Thank you so much. Be safe.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing news channel, now in 65 million homes. Get Newsmax TV on all the major cable systems or go to newsmaxtv.com and click on the Find Newsmax tab to locate us. Remember, Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.